Okay, Gil Elbaz here isn't just the founder of a big and exciting player in the local space, Factual. He also created one of the underpinnings of local with his invention of tools that form the basis for contextual advertising, namely AdSense, which in itself created a cottage industry, or I don't know if you'd even want to call it cottage, quite huge. But basically what he did was to empower local businesses to control their reach and spend on marketing. And now his company Factual is again giving local businesses better ways to make their marketing smarter, their reach more precise, and their spend more strategic than ever. Is that about right? Yeah? So, Gil's also just a nice, smart guy, and we're thrilled to have you here with us again. And so today we're going to talk from a very high level about where local data is headed, problems we need to solve, where's the innovation, and specifically touch on search and data startups and the expanse of and types of data and applications for it, and then finally how Factual is changing the world.
Sounds terrific. I'm really happy to be here and having
Great.
this chance to talk.
Terrific, terrific. So let's just start off. So we had a little pre-chat on the phone, just so you know. So it was pretty great. So I know some of the answers to these questions, but so let's just start off. How do you define local data?
Well, I like to define it very broadly. First of all, that gives us a lot more work to do. We're still in the early innings. So really, any data that you can correlate with location, you can call it local data. So it's not just the data streaming off of mobile devices. It's not just the global places database we have, but it's people's behavior. It's shopping, it's product. And you could even say that what online tools are people using? When people go to a Clippers game, are they on ESPN? Are they playing games? Are you guys playing Candy Crush in the audience right now? I mean, that's all. That data is all correlated with location, and I think becomes critical to all sorts of analytics.
Talk a little bit about that games example, about if people are playing Candy Crush, how is that local data?
How is it local data? Well, I think anytime somebody wants to optimize how you are running your business, a brick and mortar business, let's say retail, you want to know how people are interacting. And when people interact, they're interacting. It's an intersection of interacting with the physical world around them, but they're also, we don't all think it's wonderful, but they also have their head down doing something on their device, and they might be looking up prices, they might be doing, they might be doing price comparison, or maybe they're sort of just spending time and relaxing. And I think understanding the context, the full context of your users is critical when you're trying to optimize that experience.
Right. And then you can create really fascinating, unique user profiles around that. And okay. So let's also talk about how much data there is. And you guys are sort of the source of it, everyone's source for it. So talk about the rate of data you're collecting on a, regular basis, and also the your rate of attribute expansion, which I think that's really fascinating as well, as how you sort of start to slice up the data.
Yeah. So there's two dimensions of the data. So there's the global places database. Our goal was to make it very easy for anybody to build a local search, mapping, navigation, anything which required an understanding of where all the places are in the world. So our count is around 70 million across 50 countries. So everything you'd find in the yellow pages and other points of interest. So the number doesn't change dramatically. There's a ton of churn. So we'll publish blogs once in a while explaining exactly how much churn there is. Businesses closing, of course. There's a lot of attributes for restaurants, for example. We might have 30, 40 attributes, all the kinds of things you'd find in Yelp. Yelp's an example of one of our customers that's leveraging this kind of data. Now when you take it to understanding audience, then the amount of data it dwarfs places, because now you have billions of devices, and we're tracking through our partners, we're tracking many of them, looking at historical location points and putting meaning to this. So then you're talking billions of points a day.
That's amazing. Okay, and that will continue to expand, right? So, and that's part of the next question. When you said we have a lot of work to do in terms of, when you're thinking about local data, so are we early days? And if the answer is yes, so what's the vision there in terms of how do you think about it as early days?
Mm-hmm. I think the vision is that people want the convenience of a tool that really understands them. They want, and that has to be personalized and contextual. So the question is, what is context? What makes up context? In the same way you could ask, what is local data? Even a broader question is, what makes up mobile context? And it's almost endless. So there's the dimension around all the information that you're taking in and you're understanding, which includes all the conversations you're having in your email. Then there's everything physiological, biological, and we have all these sensors that track us. And then location, where you are and what's happening around you, who else is there, events, what are people buying, all these trends. And so I think that there's a lot of information to synthesize. We're focused on the location piece.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sensor companies that are doing many other things.
Right, and so, okay, so in terms of early days, it's early days in terms of the application of it, and also sort of receipt of that information, right? Because it's not 100% pervasive.
Right. So it's early days, I think, in terms of using, fully leveraging a person's desire, their intent in the application. So, I mean, I use Yelp. Yelp's terrific, but I think there's much more that a local search app can do to surface exactly what you want in that moment. It can know you better. And I think sometimes companies take this slowly because they're a little afraid of the privacy backlash. Maybe sometimes people think it gets too creepy if this system can perfectly predict what it is you want in that moment, even if you haven't told it. But then there's tools like, does anybody use Google Now, or is kind of aware of, yeah, a few people. So, I mean, Google's starting to surface all of this information that, for example, if you have a flight, you don't have to tell it. It knows, it checks your calendar, it sees you have a flight, it sees the traffic between wherever you happen to be and the flight. It knows if it's delayed. Pretty soon it's going to measure your cortisol level to see if you're stressed, in which case it'll give you an extra 5 minutes.
I think if your flight is delayed, they can probably assume your cortisol level is high.
Right. But I think that's I think that's where every app eventually will have to go as users start to expect that the system, that these apps know you better than you know yourself, and that you shouldn't have to take the time to explain it. It should be, I mean, we've heard other speakers talk about how just the way you move should be the input. You shouldn't have to use the search box.
Yeah, yeah. Well, just on that for a second, what happens to those people who aren't sending signals all the time? You know, I know some people. I actually know somebody who is actually in this room, and she has worked in the industry for a long time and has exposure to how much data is collected, and so she never gives her information out. And she's probably not in this room. I was just joking. And she's probably not a she, but just for an example. So, yeah. So, do those people fall through the cracks? What do marketers do about that? I mean, that's just what happens, right?
That's just what happens. People have every right to read the privacy policy and reduce the amount of information that gets into these systems. Now, they're never going to reduce all of it because, well, because there are systems that are watching. Now, usually that information is de-identified, and that's good. So there's a company, for example, PlaceMeter, where a business can put an iPhone, stick it on a window, and then count how many users are walking by their storefront, looking to see dwell time. You know, so there's going to be a lot of information, but it won't be personalized. Right. It won't be identifiable, and so that people have every right to do that. But I think that the trend is exactly the opposite. That people want to be tracked. People want to be tracked so that they want to be tracked by companies that take privacy seriously, but they want their app to know them.
Right. I think people have really come to understand the sort of benefit trade-off. Our lives are busier. If these machines are doing things for us, making the assumptions they know us already. So I guess we've kind of touched on, you know, some of the untapped sources out there, and we were talking a little bit about this backstage about some of the IoT stuff. So.
Yeah. So IoT is extremely interesting because, well, it just increases the amount of data by many orders of magnitude, because now your data isn't just when you're, when you're sending a message or sending a photo or sending an email. Now it's continuously tracking you in hopefully mostly wonderful ways, and so it's just a tremendous opportunity. And you know, whether or not you think there's a glut of data, too much data, I think it's always the developers that never worry at all about too much data. Their job is to synthesize the glut of information into something that's easy and actionable, the right alert at the right moment. Right. So this is a terrific thing for developers, as this combinatoric explosion of different streams of data is creating whole new opportunities to help you live your life simpler, better, easier.
Right, and yeah, so where will those, where do you
Right.
see those more
Yeah.
sophisticated applications of data coming from? I mean, you keep
Right.
mentioning Yelp, and well, I want you to answer the question,
Right.
but then I'm also going to say, do you expect that more established players will see that from more established players?
Yeah. So going back to the sensor things, I think to me, one of the more interesting directions would be in health. It's a huge part of our economy. It stands to be made much more efficient. I'm involved with the X Prize Foundation. There is the Nokia Sensor Prize and the Qualcomm Tricorder Prize, kind of sister two prizes. The vision is that within a couple years, people will be able to create something that looks like a tricorder. They got the rights. They work with the Star Trek folks, who are really cool folks. To make a tricorder, in seconds or maybe minutes, I forget, it's supposed to diagnose 16 major illnesses, conditions, and to do so with a higher rate of accuracy than a medical staff. And it'll be proven, it's statistical. It'll either work or it won't, but there's a lot of optimists that believe that we're years away from a good billion people that don't have access to medical care to have a device that's higher quality than what we have here, obviously almost free. So there's so much, it's a tremendous future there.
Yeah, I mean, that's really sort of equalizing. It's a great leveler, isn't it? The more people have access to health care, the better their lives. And is that one of the ways when, you have talked in the past about the point of, or one of the things for Factual to do is change the world or have an impact on the world. And is that one of the areas, or when you said that or thought about that, I don't know if it was just a comment you made once.
Right.
What did you intend by that?
The inspiration of founding Factual was simply to make factual data, good data, accessible, which is very basic. The reason is because we think that the most innovative people are often the ones who can't easily access data. Some of the most innovative people don't yet work for Google, and they have a lot of data, but if you don't work for them, then you have access to less. And we haven't seen, there are increasingly neutral data platforms, but still not so prevalent. So when we started, I think we were doing something a little bit more contrarian, a data company that is committed to not having any consumer engagement at all, so that all of our customers know that we're always fully aligned for never pulling the rug out. The rug is pulled when your favorite large company decides to change the terms of their API, and I think everybody knows what we're talking about. This happens all the time, that APIs change because the large companies, the large tech companies, realize that by making the data available, they're arming their future competitors.
Right.
And so making this, and so I like to think that it's ever since
arming everyone?
Yeah.
You are arming their competitors.
Yeah. Ever since that dang movie, that terrific Silicon Valley movie, I can't say that we're working to change the world. It's just so embarrassing now.
What
like,
movie? Sorry.
Well, they made there was Silicon Valley. Was it HBO? HBO. And they were kind of poking fun at how every tech startup says we're building, X and Y embedded controller because we want to change the world.
Right. Yeah, got it.
We're trying to change the world.
Yeah.
I think that data accessibility means innovation for other developers, which means these startups are some of the most creative, innovative people in the world.
Right, and that's what sort of gives them their off-ramp too. So I want to specifically bring up mobile personalization, because we talked about this a lot on the phone, sort of weaving in with various things we talked about, but I know that's a favorite topic of yours, and if you can talk a little bit about, and you've talked about these devices knowing us better, and people coming to expect certain things from their mobile experience, and if you could be a little, put a fine point on that.
Right. So mobile personalization, what are people coming to expect? So I think it's happening a little bit slowly. I think we're seeing some interesting startups. We've worked thinking of an example. So, Shopular is an example of an app that's bringing you coupons, and they were just trying harder to make things that are in proximity to you. So nothing totally dramatic, but just so incredibly useful that they're able to geocode offers, and it's just much more convenient and effective. Another one I can think of is Emu that got bought by, I believe, Google, that was in the middle of your IMs, was linking things that you were saying to your friend, let's meet at this restaurant, and then automatically linking and popping up a box that shows you a map to that location so that you don't have to
Right.
go to another tab and look
Right.
it for yourself. So stitching
Got
it into your conversation based
it.
on the context of the conversation,
Okay.
using local information.
Right.
I mean, I think there's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other ideas.
Okay. And we can get into them
Yeah.
or not. Well, let's also talk about, you started off in AdSense, or not in, with. So, local search, is it stayed? What is
No,
its
no.
potential?
I'm hugely bullish on mobile search. For a long time, I think venture capitalists have said, well, search is done. I mean, Google has a tremendous market share. Microsoft has the rest of it. And so Apple's pushing really hard with Siri and doing some pretty amazing things.
Yeah.
I think there's an opportunity in mobile now. The pendulum moved to the other side, which was don't search for what you're looking at, but there's an app for that. Find that app, go into the app, and then do the search.
Right.
But it's really not as effective of a solution than something where you have a single portal to all of your information. And I'm just starting to see the beginnings of a new crop of young companies that believe that they can offer a mobile search experience. It integrates. It's a little bit less about 10 blue links. It integrates, a graph of entities and information. It deep links apps, which isn't easy to do, but things are moving that direction.
But this is an app still itself. This mobile search experience.
It'll be an app, unless one of the iOSs buy it and integrates it in and puts the
Right.
box. I mean,
Right.
so yeah, it has to be an app.
So
But
it's an app to search other apps.
it's an app to search other apps. So you
Okay.
have companies.
That's great. I mean,
You have companies like Quixie and URX that are trying to index the data in other apps, which the original architecture didn't necessarily make it easy to do that because you don't have a URL for every moment in an app,
Right.
and maybe you should, and they're looking to fix that.
Yeah.
And Verb is another company that's trying to stitch together all the information you might need to make a decision, going out to dinner with a set of friends, all in one place instead of a tab. I think there's a lot of innovation now, and I'm interested in all these companies that
Yeah.
are trying to rethink how can mobile search be terrific. Voice search is another area that could be very
Right.
interesting.
Yeah. Talk about that a little bit. I mean, we're talking Siri, right?
Yeah.
And in terms of it, like you said, being interesting, what are the expansions from there and the applications of it?
Right, so there's a company that I invested in called Expect Labs it's listening in on the background. Again, you have to decide if you think that's creepy or not, but it helps, it brings pertinent information to you as you're discussing it without having to specifically say, Siri,
Right.
tell me this, okay, Google. Interesting.
Yeah.
I think search can be much more personalized, where it understands the history of what you've been interested in the past. So it gets back to this personalization thing.
Yeah. Right. I mean, that's ultimately what it comes down to. The sort of more granular we can get about a person, their location, and then what's happening in the moment. That's where we get closer to the Holy Grail, and where we can start charging more and
Yeah, I guess the number one,
Yeah.
probably the number one goal is, I remember how emphatic Larry Page was around saying that, there were people trying to do all sorts of measurements of which search engine's better, and he would always say, well, all it is minutes to happy user. That's the only metric that's important. And so I think, a lot of the younger companies that aren't, they are able to raise the capital so they can defer on the monetization conversation. They can
Yeah.
really focus on happy user, really study them carefully. And
Right.
I mean,
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
Right. It's not just eyeballs; it's happy users.
Yeah.
A couple more things, and then I want to go to Q&A, so get your questions ready. You said in an interview with Stephen Jacobs last week, that you think we're about to see something. I wish I had the quote in front of me. Do you remember this?
I think
It was something like, we are about to see something very soon that's going to change it all, and you said it twice. So if I had I don't know, maybe having the quote would help. But it sounded like you were referring to something specific a company you knew that was just about to come on the market, but maybe it's some of these you've spoken about today. That's not ringing any bells for you.
Shoot, it's not ringing any bells.
Okay.
But I do think that we're on the verge. I mean, at the beginning of the year, I got asked as part of some other blog predictions for 2015, and I did say that I thought that AI would come alive. I mean, that there would be some app that would launch something that was just so intelligent that made some recommendation that was just so surprisingly, shockingly good and helpful that it would sort of make consumers realize that this really is the future, having an autonomous agent that knows you better than you know yourself, that can make recommendations that neither you nor your friend could possibly make, and it helps you in dramatic ways. I think we're going to see something like that.
Timeline prediction. Oh, for 2015.
Yeah.
I like that. That sounds a little aggressive to me. I don't. Maybe I'm a cynic. So finally, you have investments through another vehicle, I understand, in a bunch of up and coming companies that you want to keep an eye on in the data space. Correct? Can you talk a little bit about those areas that are interesting and important to you that you see worth placing bets on?
Yeah. So I see just so many fantastic opportunities. I think that companies that have unique ability to turn streams of data into action and solve real-world problems across all these different industries, that's the opportunity now and over the next decade, using some sort of smarts and intelligence. And so it's really about, yes, it's software, but it's really about wrapping software around an ever-growing database that grows because of some business dynamic, because of some relationship. Those are the beautiful companies that I think are just poised to grow and have a lot of value.
Can you talk about one or two of them in particular?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see. So I've set this up as a separate fund so that there'll be a little bit less conflict, because we have a lot of our customers that worry that I'm biased in one way toward a portfolio company. So my partner, David Waxman, is on the front end, and I kind of throw ideas to him, basically. But an example, so Matt, I think, just spoke from a connectivity, company that has a really impressive CRM database, and it can do things for small businesses that are sort of magical. A sports data company, Second Spectrum, that is taking a lot of basketball data and not only helping managers manage teams based on all this advanced statistics, but soon is starting to launch ways that consumers can enjoy the game in ways that are new, sort of visualizing all this data and making it come alive.
That's exciting. That's exciting. I mean, that's definitely an area where there are so many points of data and streams of data coming in. So there's so much more we could talk about, obviously, but I want to find out if these guys have any questions for you. So we'll open it up now. Any questions? Okay, it's not the lights. There just aren't any hands up.
Right.
Okay.
Well, there's also alcohol
nearby. I know. Okay, well, let's see. Final thoughts. What was the most interesting thing to you today besides our chat?
Well, I enjoyed a lot of the presentations. I mean, it's fun to hear Amber talking about the Tower of Babel. We're working really hard to solve that. I mean, that's still a real world problem, and so to see how tangible it is for her, and all the discussion on Internet of Things is big.
Right.
There was a lot.
Yeah, and IoT is really IoT, mobile personalization. Those would be your big areas that you're looking at. And for everyone in this room, I mean, would you say those should be two of their biggest focuses right now? This does go back to, most people in this room are focused on building local presences for brick and mortar. So.
Yeah, I think it's all of these different streams of data that can be leveraged in smart ways, whether it's in the marketing cloud, using data to help customers, engage, become aware, show up, the attribution that Places is providing, and so the ROI that you can show your customers that there's there when you spend. All these streams of data and making it come alive. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you so much. It's really been such a pleasure to have this chat. And thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming. And I look forward to chatting with many of you back there. And yeah, thank you, Gil. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thank you.